From Brisbane, Australia, this is episode 79 of The Normal Blokes, a podcast dedicated to improving the competitive 40k experience. I'm Luke, and today I'm here with my good mate, Liam. How you doing, Liam?
Going really good, man. Welcome to 2021.
I know, right? It's crazy. 2020 went so fast, and now we're already into 2021.
I mean, look, we can leave that year behind. We can enjoy this completely perfect, nothing could be wrong year. You know?
Let's, considering Adelaide, so Australia's having a massive tournament soon. I think it's, how many players was it at last checked, Liam?
It was going to be, I think, about 140 players. There were a few people who got a bit spooked before the borders shut, so it went down before that. But unfortunately, especially for us Queenslanders here in Australia, it is looking increasingly unlikely that we will not be able to attend. But I live in hope. All of the Normal Blokes fellas live in hope that we'll be able to go. You'll be joining us too, Luke, if you can, of course. Fingers crossed we can go.
Yeah.
I really, really want this event to go ahead.
I know, right? And yeah, so currently Brisbane, we were just coming out straight out of a 3-day lockdown because we had a COVID emergence, and our government takes it pretty seriously, which I'm quite thankful for. So that sort of jeopardizes our chances of going down to Adelaide, but fingers crossed, as Liam said. Now, in this episode, we're going to be talking about some good content that's coming out of TMB. Liam will lead the charge on that, but then we're going to lead on to some points changes that recently came up with the FAQ. We're also going to cover the rules changes of the FAQ and how we think that's going to impact the core game or how the game is going to be played. And then we're going to cover out some more events for 2021, hopefully, fingers crossed. So kicking it off, first of all, Liam, what hobby have you been starting in the new year?
Man, I decided that I really like losing games of 40k. So I started a Tau army. It was originally going to be Farsight. So I've got a lot of crisis suits and some breaches sitting on my hobby desk ready to be painted. What about you?
Yeah, so I've actually started Harlequins. I tried doing a Joker themed Harlequins from like the Dark Knight. I figured it might be cool to put something a little bit thematic on the Harlequins, try a different approach. So we'll see how that goes. I've only done one model so far as a teaser, but it looks promising in my eyes. But we'll see how that goes.
This podcast knows that I would actually die if I painted one model at a time. If I painted one model at a time, I would have some sort of horrific brain event and not be able to hobby anymore. I have to paint 100 models at a time, batch paint them, get them all done in a day. That's the Liam way.
The most annoying part is that you actually do a good job. Like, they look good still, which is frustrating.
And when they brought out contrasts, they were thinking, in Nottingham or wherever the HQ is, they were thinking, that guy Liam in Australia, the guy who fucks up all our models and makes them look terrible, let's sort him out. Let's fix him up. That's exactly what they were saying.
This one's for you, bro. Starting off, back on topic, starting off the podcast. The Normal Blokes has some great news. So Liam's leading an initiative as part of the Normal Blokes, and it's actually bat reps. We're going to try and move into the field of bat reps, but I'll let Liam run down what he's started here.
Yeah, so obviously no one's ever done 40k battle reports before, so I figured we'd be the first people on the block to give that a whirl. We've been very, very lucky in that there's a local store here in Brisbane that has a really incredible streaming room set up with some soundproofing, a number of cameras and microphones, and all the computers set up to not just stream it all, but edit it if necessary. What I really want to do is start doing some tournament-focused battle reports. We have quite a lot of tournaments planning to be run here in 2021, and what a lot of people love to do is to track people's lead up to big events and sort of have a look at their process, how they develop and how they refine lists. So one thing I really want to, that we're going to start doing, actually starting next week, we're going to be recording some battle reports with people from all over Brisbane, from a variety of clubs, or anyone who wants to be involved. And not just myself will be involved in that too. Denise, Luke and Jordan have already said that they're pretty keen to be involved, and also some other guys from the TMB club Ben Warrior is quite keen to be involved too, and I'll be recording one with him. What I'm really excited about is we're going to be involving lists and factions from what most people want to see or hear. If you have something in particular that you think is really awesome, something really innovative, and I'm not talking about that slightly different loadout on your Vanguard veterans unit for your Raven Guard or White Scars army, I mean something actually innovative, pop the podcast a message. I am a full addict for this game, and I man that podcast chat pretty diligently. Totally keen to chat about lists, and I want to put some other people's armies on the podcast. Record some battle reports, get your name out there if you want, and have some fun playing some games too. That's what we're going to be doing starting from next week. The plan is to put out one every couple of weeks, realistically a month, if we do some editing too. And the battle reports will involve using GT missions on WTC terrain. We will even tell you what terrain loadout it is. And the lists will be made public as well to sort of give people a bit more of idea about how some of the Brisbane players prepare for events and sort of the list building and refining process, because you might see a similar list played a number of times with some small changes, and we'll sort of have a chat about how those changes go throughout the season, which is pretty much what we'll be calling it. That's the long and short of it, Luke, and I'm keen to see you on one of those battle reports too.
Yeah, I'll give it a go, that's for sure. Probably actually, when I think about it, Liam, that would be my first time on a stream or something like that. Actually playing.
Have you not played on a stream, Luke?
No, I haven't played on stream actually. Every time I get like.
Are you serious? Wow.
Every time I get to the top table or something, it's normally I'm like the second top table, and Eric or someone's playing on the other one, and I'm like, yeah, we're gonna stream that one. I'm like, damn it. Missed it by that much. But no, it is
So
what it is.
close.
We're super excited to do this, but we've sort of fast tracked it now for the start of this year. We had been thinking about it for some time. We've been talking about it, but obviously there's quite a lot of saturation with the bat reps out there. So we wanted to figure out like how we could deliver something a little bit differently. And yeah, I think we'll do that, and we'd love to hear any feedback, obviously. But that'll come when we first release the bat reps. So moving on. The next thing we wanted to cover, Liam, was the points changes with the new FAQ. So I'm sure everyone, or if you're not active on the Competitive 40K Facebook page, you might have missed it. But I'm sure a lot of people have heard that the points changes were very kind to some armies, particularly the Drukhari. There were some other winners in the points changes as well. What were your particular favourite winners of the points changes, Liam?
As I mentioned before, I have a special soft spot for the fish people, the Tau, and crisis suits all going down a little bit was pretty good. You now basically get crisis bodyguards for the cost of normal crisis suits, and all of the war gear got streamlined a little bit, so it's all round numbers, which is nice. For reasons that I don't understand, all the drones stayed the same cost unless if you buy them as tactical drones. Yeah, it's really bizarre. Tactical drones are like 20 points a model, but if you buy a shield drone for a unit, it's 15 points. Or if you buy like a marker drone for a unit, it's like 10 points. So it's weird how like the same drone is a different points cost depending on how you buy it. So that's actually a little bit bizarre, and I'm not sure if that's an error. I am overjoyed, as always, by any Marine points increases, and Outriders got a 5 points increase, which is pretty good. Luke, I feel like we're skirting around the elephant in the room, because I know and I can hear you itching about wanting to talk about Drukhari points.
My knee is twitching right now. Yeah. So Drukhari, like we were looking at it the other day, and it's almost, some units got 50% points reduction. Like it's just insane. And I think one of the biggest ones that most people are kicking off about is the number one, the racks, but number two, the big one, which a lot of people say is a mistake, and I probably believe it to be the case, is the Reavers. Reavers went down to 10 points per model.
Definitely a mistake. It's definitely a mistake. There's no way that's not a mistake.
They literally halved their points cost, which is, it's absurd, really. Like 5 points per wound is insane. You can make them T5 with the combat drugs. They move like 18 inches, so yeah, it's
There's absolutely no way they have per wound Reavers being the same cost as like a cultist.
yeah.
It's just not possible. I mean, like, I feel like what they did for it, like, I feel like it's just a typo. Like the dude at GW with his really fat thumbs pressed like a 1 instead of a 2, because I feel like they weren't intending to change their points at all.
No.
Or if they were, man, like the war gear should maybe cost you something. I don't know. Whatever it is, at 10 points a model, I'm totally expecting. How big a squad can you take?
You can take 12 models.
36 in every list. Oh no, hang on. 11 models is bad. 30 in every list. Easy. Like 300 points for
That's
60 wounds of bikers.
Yeah,
What?
it's so cheap. Very, 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 very cheap. There's some little gimmicks, like they don't do that much damage. I mean, you can throw. They have heat lancers, which are quite good. The blasters unfortunately didn't get any of the fusion like treatment with the +2 damage like the marine ones, so they're okay. They're 15 points. But the heat lance is really where it's at because it's strength 6, neg 5, d6 damage. So that's some nice kit that you'll see on the Reavers probably. Now the other big winner was actually the racks. So the racks dropped about a quarter of their points. So they went from 12 points to 8 points, which, in my opinion, that's now the best points for a troop in the game. What would you
I
say?
think that's a third, Luke.
My math must be wrong. My math must be wrong. Sorry.
Yeah, so man, I mean, at 8 points a model, a rack is cheaper than a plague bearer. Because the plague bearer is 9 points now, I believe. 9 or 8 points, regardless, it's comparable to a plague bearer. A rack also always pretty much wounds on 4s. A rack has a 4-up invo if you just take it as Prophets of Flesh. You can respawn a whole unit of racks. They are a higher leadership. They are faster. They have guns. Or the list keeps going. They're pretty much better in most ways at what a plague bearer kind of wanted to do anyway, which was tar pit things and be objective secured. And I mean, better yet, they're kind of in an army that doesn't have many super durable units. Like, I know you have the other homunculus cup and stuff, but the army's not overflowing with durability. But to have 8-point troops that are so tough is game changing, to be honest. I know it comes on the kind of preceding a codex that might really shake things up, but in the meantime, with the rules that we've got right now, those racks are just, I think they're game leading, if anything else.
Yeah, for sure. And not to mention, they actually got a squad size change. So I'm not sure if this is a typo or maybe just, as Liam said, coming up to the new codex, but they went from 10 models maximum to 20 models maximum, which, as it stands currently, you can now bring back full 20-man squads until there's a rules change. So that is like absolutely insane. You can do that unlimited times with the Stratagem Black Cornucopians for 2 CP. You can bring back 20 rack models. I mean, in my opinion, it's going to get changed. There's no way that's going to stay. However, Liam, you brought up a good point with me when we were talking about this earlier. I actually remember saying this to you, and you said after a number of games, you noticed that at 10-man rack squads, you would typically underkill them, and then they would achieve the goal that they're trying to achieve, like, say, hold an objective. Whereas a 20-man rack squad, you know that you're going to probably have to commit a lot more shots, so you're not undercommitting. I think that's a valuable point.
So I think one of the things that's always been really scary about the rack play, obviously, and with them being able to come back, is that danger of you just sort of wasting your time. I mean, if you've got a unit of 10, for example, the fear of having killed 19 racks and then or like 17, for example, and then they can't really run to morale unless your opponent really likes rolling 1s and 2s. And then bringing back a 20-point unit is pretty terrifying. But the issue is, I guess, like you said, Luke, before when there's lots of squads of 10, I know people used to try and focus them down one squad at a time. And that was actually, it's kind of an annoying, like almost perfect number to try and do, right? Because 10 racks for the 4-up invo, you make them take 20 saves and you'd expect them to die. But they've got a 6-up on their pain. A couple might live. I don't know, maybe they spike on their 4-ups and things survive. So you kind of can't guarantee that just putting what the math says you should into that unit should kill it. So whenever people play against the racks, they kind of got used to, or so you didn't really have a choice. Sometimes just racks would survive, and then they would, black cornucopians, and the whole squad would come back, and it'd be really bloody frustrating. But if they're in 20-man units, yeah, man, I know it's good. And no way am I here talking crap about our Lord and Savior, the Rack God. But the thing is, with 20, if you got a 20-man, your opponent's going to shoot all of their guns into a squad because there's no chance that you like overkill it. Really, with a 4-up invo, I don't think anything really like drastically overkills it. And because of that, I actually feel like over the course, like once people have played more games with the 20-man rack units, I actually feel like people are going to find that it's not as, ridiculously busted as previously thought. The other thing to really think about is what killed racks was not las cannons. It was always going to be bulk firepower. And when you're going those 20-man squads, you're obviously triggering the highest part of the blast rule. So that means, things like wyverns and whatnot will just get 24 automatic shots against you, not 46. Marines throwing grenades for 1 CP get 30 automatic frag grenade shots against you, and just all this extra stuff that will actually help kill the 20-man squads. And once again, people are just going to be committing whole squads into shooting you because there's very little chance they're going to be wasting their damage. So I think the internet's going crazy about it, but I think it's actually a choice, right, to take 20-man rack units. I don't think it's an automatic, like, given you must do this.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I agree. I think, you could, a lot of lists you might see emerging will be like, I don't know, 60 to 100 racks in 20-man squads, if they're really going for that just denial style list. But I'm thinking like maybe the 2 20-man squads would be enough to do what you need them to do, and then you can sort of point to other things. But it's yet to be seen. I'm sure we'll see some creative lists coming out there.
The really crazy thing about the 20-man units is the same reason why huge units of like demons got really frustrating. It's that they're great for a screen, like when you play against Blood Angels or something, because if you screen with one squad, they can really only hit one squad. So like a melee unit goes into them and kills just one squad of racks, not multiple, and that's pretty awesome because you can totally screen like half a deployment zone with a 20-man unit.
For sure. The other one, I think if I remember correctly, in a Warhammer community article, they were mentioning Incubi and Incubi going to 2 damage. Yeah, that's correct, right? I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, man, that's 100% correct. And boy, is that a thing.
Yeah,
that's huge.
That's going to be awesome, especially because their points values stayed the same. So coming into the new codex, they're still going to be 16 points, but they're going to have 2 damage, which is just like the Marine killer. So that's kind of what they need. Drazar, on the other hand, he got a 35 point increase, I think, which is quite hefty. Kind of takes him away from that auto take that he mostly was in a lot of lists.
He was for a while though, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. I mean, he's amazing, Venoms.
He's so good.
Venoms are dirt cheap now, 65 points. Which is,
Really? Only 65 points? That's hectic.
65 points for Venom. Pretty crazy. So I'm not sure about the Talos still. I think they're kind of like a bit of a lost gem. They now don't benefit. Sorry, they don't give up the big game hunter secondary, whatever it's called. Bring it down. Is that it? Jeez, man, so many rules. Yeah, so they're a bit better for that. So you could probably consider Talos again, but I guess we'll see how that goes. Now, the other one I liked, Liam, was Eldar troops, Craftworlds. Guardians went down to 8 points per model, the Guardian Defenders, which means Guardian Bombs. Yes, come back to me, please. Dire Avengers went to 11 points, so now they've actually got viable troops options instead of just nothing. So that's good. Any other particular points changes that tickle your fancy, Liam?
Well, I think the overall thing is actually really interesting as like an idea, because these are points changes that come directly before we're about to get a couple of codexes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the Death Guard points are appropriate for the new codex. They've already said that, and the Dark Eldar points are the same, which is kind of weird because we're at this point now, and I can't actually think of a scenario where we've been a situation where this has happened before, where we look at a rack, right, and we go, the rack's 8 points. That's amazing how it is right now, but we don't know in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks if that's still going to be what we're saying.
Exactly.
Man, what happens if Homunculus Covens lose their Invo as their special rule? They're rewriting the whole codex. So who knows what's going to happen? You might get Can't Wound on better than a 4-up rather than a 4-up Invo. And then, 20 racks is definitely not as scary as it used to be and stuff like that. So, I mean, look, time will tell. I think it's going to be pretty weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be interesting. The main thing I'm just happy with is Marines. I mean, they kind of got hit with a lot of things, which was good.
Dude, I was 100% convinced Marines were going to get a points reduction. I was just ready for it because I was like, it'd be totally reasonable if they got a points hike, and I was like, yeah, GW is going to do the opposite of that, hands down. And you know what? I'm happy to be wrong. There are some reasonable changes with the Marine points. Nothing like list ruining or game changing, but look, in the context of Dark Eldar getting some big changes and the Death Guard book coming, the game's definitely going to be shaken up a bit.
Yeah. I think Eradicator's got a massive points increase, right?
I actually don't remember the number, but I'm pretty sure they did get an increase, yeah.
I'm trying to find it now, but I actually can't see it because I'm blind.
One thing that is interesting as well in terms of the points changes, you mentioned it with the racks. I mean, the points gave you an indication of squad size, which is actually really interesting. It's almost like GW's hinting or Easter egging their own rules because, yeah, racks went to 20-man squads. But, for example, Death Guard possessed are now only squads of 10 maximum, not squads of 20, whereas Chaos Space Marine possessed are squads of 20. So that's really, really interesting because it already shows that there's going to be some differences, I think, between just Death Guard and Chaos Space Marines, even with units that have the same name. So I think that's kind of cool, and GW is sort of hinting at that. One thing that's really interesting, Luke, is like, for example, using racks as an example. Yeah, they got a points change, and yeah, the Munitorum Field Manual says, you can take squads of 10 to 20, but the Munitorum Field Manual is supposed to only be for like FAQs and points changes. So some events, and there are some events locally here in Brisbane who are thinking about it too, sort of saying that because the data sheet for racks still says 10 models, that's what they'll be going with. Because Munitorum Field Manual doesn't replace your data sheet. It just changes your points. I'm not sure that's the right way to go, but I think time will tell how events decide to do it. When your data sheet says something and your FAQ says something drastically different, and then your Munitorum Field Manual says something different, and God help us, GW, you said we were going to have less books for rules. You lied to me. That's going to be... It's going to be pretty weird.
That was the complaint with 7th edition. I mean, like, too many books, but yeah, until they actually get this app working properly to a good standard, I think it's going to be books.
Yeah, man, I don't know what you're talking about. I think a Death Jester is strength 65. I think that's completely reasonable.
For 50 points? Yes, he is.
Yeah, strength 65 is pretty reasonable. I also think one of the Black Templar, the High Master Helbrecht, he should be 1,500 points, on his own or something like that. I forget if that's still an error or if that's been fixed yet. And Cultist should be max squad size of 400. No, I totally agree with GW on that one. That was a completely reasonable choice for your app. Good work, guys.
Abaddon and one squad of Cultists. Thanks.
That's it, man. 400 cultists in one squad. I cast Neg 1 to hit.
I'd just sit on all the ejectors and be like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, it's pretty silly. GW definitely dropped the ball on the app, and I think they know they did.
Yeah.
One thing that was actually really funny, right? Sorry to derail the conversation. I promise I'll bring us back, Luke. Was when GW said, "Hey, we're going to give you the app, like the list builder part, for free."
Yeah, for free. Yeah.
The only downside is you have to subscribe to the normal app to get the free list builder, and then like you do that, and it's like, oh, okay, wait a minute. I've now subscribed to an app where all the other components of this app are pay to play. So it's like you subscribe to a paid app to get a free feature. You're like, I see what you did there, G-Dub. Nice try.
They're good, man. They're good. It's a
Dude,
business.
their marketing team is like Machiavellian at its greatest. Like,
I think
they know what they're up to.
They came from Apple, I reckon.
Oh, for sure.
Anyway, back on topic. So, any other major players? Now, Denise mentioned to me today on Messenger. He said that Fire Raptors went down in points, and he said they might be viable now. He said they're like 400 points.
Are they the marine gunship?
Yeah, you remember when back in the days where it was 3 Fire Raptors Robbie G or 4 Fire Raptors Robbie G or something like that?
Yeah, it was. Some people did Fire Raptors, some people did Storm Ravens. I mean, that's kind of like the dark times of this edition. I don't think I want to go back to that. I wonder why they went down. That's odd.
Oh, I think he was saying about an option that's like 400 points, which is really good. But
man, I know why they went down, because all the characters and stuff, the auras are now core. So if you take, for example, 3 Fire Raptors and Robbie G, you can actually only give one the Chapter Master bonus, and the rest of them don't have any rerolls or benefits whatsoever. So it's way, way, way less efficient. And also, we're now playing GT missions. So if you want to have a 400-point plane that does nothing for the mission, you can fire right at. You can go ahead.
Yeah. No, I think it might just be the changes to the heavy bolters stuff and whatnot, because heavy bolters with 2 damage now. I think that's what he was referring to.
Oh, that's pretty hectic, actually.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's back at the fire ship, like the proper firebase level. But yeah, as you said, I'm typically in this edition with the way it is, not a fan of big gun bases, gun platforms anymore. I was talking about this with Simon the other day. There's always, like, in a lot of lists, you'd have, your objective scoring units that move forward and go up, and you got, your combat units that want to try and bait people into combat or get into combat somehow, and then you've got your little fire platform that make people have to play the game and come forward. But now the objectives and the missions do that for you, so you don't really need that sort of gun base that sits at the back the whole time. I think that's why Harlequins do so well, because their mobileness, their mobility, is their damage as well. So,
I think the crazy thing about clowns at the moment as well is that their damage unit players also happens to be their troops choice.
Their troops happen to be troops. Yeah, they're called troops.
Man, I am a poet. I didn't even realize it, but yep. Because you have a situation where, look, you want to die. A lot of factions, the troops are kind of, you need them this edition because, I think you need OBSEC. But for a lot of factions, the troops are trash, right? Like you take Cultist or something like that, or Chaos Space Marines, and they're all pretty bad. But for Harlequins, their troops choices will kill you, will cover the whole table, and will steal your objectives. They're kind of like good at everything, and that's why Harleys are just doing so well in the missions. They're so good.
Yeah. And actually, Harlequins didn't really get a points change for the most part, so they're kind of staying where they are.
That's also pretty hectic to be honest.
It was unexpected on my behalf, on my end. But yeah. Alright, any other final points changes or interesting things with the units that you want to cover?
No, I think that pretty much covers the points changes, but part of the same release, Luke, was the FAQ, which certainly shook things up.
For sure. Do you want to run through the basic changes there, Liam?
Look, the changes were small but huge. Like in terms of FAQs and whatnot, very little changed rules wise, but I think they have a massive impact on the game. So the biggest change, from my perspective, is the first turn change. To be honest, now after both sides have deployed, when you're playing 40k games in general, doesn't just apply to GT missions. From my understanding, you roll a dice, and if you win, you must go first. You do not have a choice. This is huge, right? Because obviously you've always got, in inverted commas, like a 50% chance of going first, you'd think. But the reality is, I feel like you actually have more. Let me restart that again. I apologize. You'd think you have a 50% chance of getting the result you want, right? Going first or second. But I think the reality is you actually have a bit more or a bit less than that. Because if you have the choice, or if your opponent has the choice, they might fully well make the wrong choice, or they might, or you get the choice and you might make the wrong choice. So, it kind of ends up being a bit more unpredictable, and there's a lot of thought, a lot of planning that goes into that choice. But now that it's truly 50-50, there is no if, buts, or maybes about it. The game is more chaotic, right? It just is. You have less control over it, and so, it's just stressful, I think, in some ways, because
Yeah, it's crazy.
you're not going to be able to know. Like, I think it forces everyone to deploy super defensively. Like, how can you do anything different? Because if you deploy
100%.
aggressively and then you go second, oh my god.
Yeah. So I was thinking the exact same thing. A lot of the times you'll see people, you deploy, alternate, and then in your head, you go, oh, they've misdeployed that. I want to get first turn now because I can capitalize on that. Or alternatively, you'll think they've deployed too defensively. So if I go second, they can do literally nothing to me in the first turn. So I can make benefit off of that. But now there's no, like, you roll and then choose. So it's just pure roll, shit, I'm going first or I'm going second. I don't get to think about it. There's no strategy behind it. It's just kind of like, that's the roll. That's what happens. So I definitely agree. It's going to make people, I think it's going to make the people who, think about the situation a bit more less likely to deploy aggressively, because if you win the roll, you're going to go first. And you're like, oh shit, now or you go second. That's it. You're done. So I think the safest option is deploying safe.
Yeah, and I think it's really bizarre, right? Because what a lot of people, in my experience, used to do is they used to deploy sort of aggressively with some units they didn't care about, and that would force your opponent, if they won the roll off, to take first turn, to draw you out and make you take advantage of your, in inverted commas, mistake.
That's right.
But you actually wanted them to do that. And there was this whole mind games, like this sort of intricate first turn shenanigans that people used to do, and all this sort of stuff that now is entirely out the window. I mean, for better or for worse, this FAQ change takes people's control out of the game. Yeah. Your skill level doesn't matter. The amount of tournaments you've played, the amount of Garage Hammer you've played doesn't matter. It's simply a roll-off. And I think this is kind of, I don't know about you, Luke, but I feel like this is a bit of a trend over the last couple of years. I mean, with the change of the edition, objective placement went away. So your control over the flow of the game was no longer a thing. And that's, again, for better or for worse. People's opinions differ. And then now this, your control over first turn is now gone. So the game is now, in many respects, out of the control of the players in a lot of different ways. But what's interesting about this is, at the same time as they took the control away from you, they also changed how we score. Luke, do you want to run through the changes to last turn scoring?
Yeah, so basically there was a lot of first turn bias going on, particularly when you could, build these Alpha Strike armies, pick first turn, and then just go first and kill, key units or whatever. And some armies, unfortunately, just couldn't handle a first turn hit, just because of the way their armies play or units that they need in their armies. You just couldn't really take a first turn hit, or at least you couldn't recover from it. And obviously there's contention online. It's, you deployed wrong, playing on the wrong train, yada yada, whatever the case may be. The second turn had a big disadvantage, not only from the first turn hit, but the last round of the game just honestly felt like a ghost round. Like, why am I playing this round? Because my opponent scored everything. They've stopped me from scoring. Now I'm literally doing nothing. Like, unless I'm getting a kill secondary or like a final getting a table quarter, I can't score primary. My primary's already been done, which is half your scoring opportunity, right? So
Yeah.
it was kind of like a feel bad kind of moment, and it kind of felt a bit empty on your last turn and what to do sometimes. So what they did is they changed primary mission scoring in the last battle round for the second player. Now they score their primary points at the end of the round instead of the start of the round. So
it's a huge game change, I think, overall. Like, massive difference.
Huge.
I mean, here's a question for you, Luke. Overall, I like this change, but do you think it went far enough? What do you reckon?
It's interesting. We talked about this before, and I think it's just kind of like a band-aid fix to a fundamental problem. Like, it's just kind of like the core game's a bit, unbalanced in this way, but I'm just gonna second player. If you go second, just score on the last turn. Score at the end of your battle round. We'll just change that instead of like a revamp of the whole scoring system. It's kind of like a band-aid awkward fix. It's a good idea. It's something that a lot of people have talked about and suggested, but I do feel it's a little bit of a band-aid fix. I think that's the best way I can summarize it.
Yeah,
I still think it's good though.
Yeah, dude, 100% positive about the change. I think it's a good step in the right direction.
100%.
But I think the problem, from my perspective, with going second, isn't the primary, because even if you're going second, I know overall, like on average, you score less primary. But in a lot of really high level and close, especially tournament games, like if you watch some of the streamed games from like the Glasshammer guys, I watched a couple of their streams more recently. Their games are normally pretty close on primary, but the disparity comes from the second player scoring way less secondaries. Because if you're going second, engage really puts you out. Domination is challenging. Banners is typically way harder to do. Deploy scramblers is harder to do because of the ability for people to move and screen you out. All these secondaries become way more challenging to do. And if you look at scorecards for first and second players, I've even noticed this in my own games. I think the disparity is often in close games anyway. In blowout games, look, this might help a little bit, but your opponent's going to probably win anyway. But in close games, the disparity comes from the secondary points. And this FAQ, I don't think it doesn't do anything to address that secondary disparity. In fact, you still kind of get just rules screwed over, forgive the term there, if you go second, because there are quite a lot of secondaries that are scored at the start of the next turn, start of the next battle round. Yep. So, for example, if you do something like deploy teleporter homers or something like that, or a lot of the mission secondaries that are scored at the start of your next turn, and you've got the bottom of the fifth turn, well, you can't get any points for it. Even if you set everything up and your play is perfect, you can't actually do anything with that because there is no next turn. And I feel like a really easy fix to actually really help that second player would have been if they did something like, in addition to what they've done, they said any actions that are pending at the end of the game are completed for the second player.
Yeah.
And then that would mean that the bottom turn, because still what happens, even with this primary change, the player who goes first in their fifth turn just tries to kill as much as they can because the objectives don't matter anymore. And then the second player it still doesn't really matter what happens because they can get 15 for their primary if they can, but all of the secondaries and pretty much everything is scored by that point. But if you make this change, then the player who goes first has to make some really tough choices in their last turn. They can't just muck around and waste their time. And I think that would have been a really good balancing act for the game, to be honest.
Yeah. No, I think that's definitely an interesting point because I didn't think about the secondary being impacted as well. because it's funny that you mentioned that, because when you think about it, a lot of the secondaries, unless you're like Necrons or Marines now with your special secondaries, you're taking pretty much 2 board control secondaries on in most cases, right?
Yeah.
And maybe 1 kill one if that happens, or the mission one or something. So yeah, typically you're not going to be able to do those board control secondaries, or as you said, the score at the beginning of your turn ones. So it is something that is skewed still. That's a really good point, Liam. I think it comes to like that fundamental thing. Like you've got the primary mission, which is board control, objective scoring. Then you've got the secondary mission, which is board control primarily, and a few kill ones which people can build around quite easily. So it's just kind of like that weird core fundamental game that I still think is a little bit off,
I think one of the things that has changed so drastically, and I'm still not used to it despite years having gone by, is that now that objectives aren't put down at all, the game is all about the middle-ish of the table, right? And even in missions where there isn't a central objective, if you're playing an army that doesn't want to come into the center of the table, you're just going to lose.
Yeah.
There's actually no way for you to really score points. Like you can get tabled this edition and bleed almost no points, provided you die in the right place. Like you can build a Necron army, and quite a lot of those OBSEC Necron armies are like that, where if you kill the whole army, it gives up max 9 for assassinate and really no other secondaries. So you're not going to take those secondaries against them, and then they can just flood the board with models, and turn 4 they're wiped out. You can kill all those models if you've got a list that has the right tools, but it's not relevant. You've already lost the game. And the thing is, going second and allowing people to score at the end of the turn helps a bit, because when that attacker, the first player, runs out of steam, if they've been super aggressive, you can get some points at the end of the game. But it's not enough, because at that point, if you've gone 5, 5, 5, and then 15 in your last turn to your opponent's 45, you're already playing down 15 points. But if you've had to be defensive, you're scoring less on those board control secondaries that you mentioned before, Luke, the ones that I think you're almost obliged to take now. And you're getting less for the action ones too, because you have a wasted turn, and most of them can't be done in your first turn either. So you have 2, 3, 4 to do them in, and it's a struggle.
Yeah, there's one more point that I think is important in this, is that a lot of the times if you're going second as well, you have most of the time like scramblers is picked quite often, right? When people dive you in their first turn and make you have to react, sometimes your units that you want to scramble either A, die if they're paperweights or something and you got a mobile opponent or something, or B, have to react to something that your opponent's done that you then can't do your secondary properly. Like as you said, banners is bad if you're going second. Like it's hard to do because your opponent can just kind of stop you from being able to get onto the other objectives as easy,
And they have 2 turns to respond to where you raise banners, right?
Exactly.
If you raise a banner in your first turn, or that they've moved up, and then they can move up again in the time that it takes you to score any points.
Yes, they get 1 additional turn to stop you from doing those active secondaries.
The other huge part about this FAQ that, again, I actually think hurts the second player as well, personally, is the changes to While We Stand, We Fight.
Yes.
Now, this is actually... I think a lot of people have sort of brushed over this. I reckon this is one of the biggest parts of this FAQ, if not, to be honest, bigger than the first turn thing, is that the While We Stand, We Change very simply had a minor little change to its wording. It's now the most expensive units, not most expensive models.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's straight up. Before, While We Stand, We Fight was you picked your 3 most expensive models, and at the end of the game, you get 5 points for each of them that are alive. Most armies could do this incredibly easily if you simply built your list to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was your characters. It's always going to be your HQ choices or your elite characters if your army's built around it. Quite a lot of Marine armies love to do it. Harlequins love to do it. Custodes, Grey Knights, Chaos Space Marines, Demons, all of them like to do While We Stand, We Fight because it was a good secondary. And also it's one of the few secondaries that awarded you for playing defensively. keeping just 3 models alive to save you 15 points at the end of the game was a no-brainer. But now that it's squads, it's not as much of an auto take. And it's got some interesting ramifications as well. I mean, armies like, for example, Grey Knights and Custodies, they're inherently quite strong at the moment because, I think those armies do have merit. But almost universally, they took While We Stand, We Fight. And that was a 15 points they could always count on because they played really cagey. They stayed alive to the end of the game, and that was 15 points. Bob's your uncle. But now you have to pick other secondaries. And you mentioned it before, Luke. You're almost obliged to take the board control secondaries because the rest of them are crap. I mean, like, if somebody manages to do Pierce the Veil in a game and get 15 points, I will buy you dinner. I mean, good work. You've done well. But most of the ones that are actually doable for a reasonable amount of points are board control related. Now, if you're playing a defensive army, or if you're going second, While We Stand, We Fight was a secondary that you wanted to have. It really helped. And now it's nowhere near as good as it used to be. The really, really tough part about this While We Stand change, man, I think is going to be the Space Marines. Because Space Marines, they always made a bit of a binary choice between the Oath, that I forget what that one's actually called. It's one of those Space Marine specific
Oath of
secondaries.
Moment, I believe.
Oath of the Moment.
Oath of Obnoxious.
Oath of Obnoxious, because Oath almost it obliges you to take the center of the table for 2 points a turn, and While We Stand, We Fight was like the polar opposite. It made you want to stay back in your deployment zone and just stay alive. But now that your characters are probably not your most expensive unit, I don't know, because you have any other squad of Space Marines, you're going to almost always take Oath of Moment. It's just a good secondary for Space Marines, which is interesting, right? Because now people preparing to play against Marines can pretty comfortably say that my opponent's going to move into the very center of the table. And certain armies are pretty excited about that. Like melee-based forces are like, cool, the Marines are going to come to me. Harlequins are lapping it up. It's interesting to be a Marine player's opponent at the moment because their choices are less. Like that, you can almost always count on them doing Oath, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
No, I definitely agree. Like, it gives you really, like, what are the secondaries that are actually good that people take? Like, if you don't have a Psycho and you're versus Psychos, it's always Arbor the Witch, or Arbor the Witch, however you want to pronounce it. While We Stand, We Fight was a common one. Other ones, like Bring It Down, were rarely chosen. Scramblers is quite common. What else were just like the always picks? Probably the Engage on all fronts.
Bring It Down's going to be chosen even less now because that also got changed. My apologies, listeners. Essentially the number of points you get got reduced by 1 for each category of vehicle. So if it's like 10 or less wounds, you only get 1 point per vehicle, and if it's 11 or more, you get 2. And then there's a third category now for 3 points, I believe, for bigger vehicles.
For 20 or more.
Yeah. It's actually crazy because then you can have an army that's like 15 raiders, for example, and you have to kill all of it just to get the 15 points for Bring It Down. So yeah. I don't think Bring It Down's ever going to be taken anymore, Luke, which is sort of your point.
Exactly, like it's so bad. Dude, an army of knights now probably won't even give you max points. It's like, what, you can get 3 or 4 knights?
They give up Titan Slayer, right?
Oh, okay. I haven't even seen that secondary because no one plays knights anymore.
Yeah, man, Knights are still bad.
Yeah, unfortunately. But yeah, like that's what they're really, really just hammering down on these kill secondaries. And you know, I was just thinking, right? If you've got a an alpha striking thing that's an issue and board control is an issue, and unfortunately the army that goes second has to kill more than the opponent needs to kill, like you're required to kill more inherently because you need to make space back, right? Why not have a secondary that is just like kill a portion of your opponent's army, like 500 points for 5 points, 1,000 points for 10 points, and 1,500 points for 15 points. Like, just an arbitrary blanket. If you kill, like, almost table your opponent, that's 15 points, because then you have a secondary to work for that means like killing units actually matters. A bit more like blanket rule.
You always have that secondary grind them down, but I think a few people will start looking at more because of the change to While We Stand. And grind them down is just in a battle round kill more units than your opponent killed. But the weird thing about Grind Them Down is Grind Them Down was an awesome secondary to take if you wanted to go second, or if you knew your opponent wanted to go first, because you take Grind Them Down, and then you have, if you're playing that way, you can, because first turn was so strong, you had an almost 100% chance of going second. If you're going to choose it and your opponent's going to choose the opposite, then you know that essentially almost always you're going to be going second. And then if they start being aggressive, which they kind of have to be, you can get 12 to 15 points for Grind Them Down reasonably easily. It was actually a good secondary. But classic G-Dub, maybe it was intentional, maybe it wasn't. Now that first turn is so chaotic, Grind Them Down is a risky business. Yeah. It's a risky business, man. It's a risky business. An interesting combo, though, that I've been doing with the army I've been playing, Luke, is take Domination and Grind Them Down.
Yeah.
Because Domination is great if you go first, and Grind Them Down is great if you go second. So you're kind of protecting yourself in both scenarios. Because it mainly works for like melee-based armies. Because if you're going first, you really sort of focus on the domination and board control. But if you're going second, you just focus on countering and killing as much of your opponent's army as possible to hit them hard. And it works both ways. So that's an interesting combo now that While We Stand has changed. Something to think about.
Yeah, right. It's a good idea. However, you might be sacrificing a secondary based on chance.
Yup. Well, I'm
sometimes
pretty sure the game
is.
Dude, I swear the game is rapidly approaching. Like, we're just gonna get to a table. We're gonna deploy all our armies, and then like the Marine player's gonna like lock eyes with you and be like, "I'm gonna flip my limited edition Space Marine coin, and if it shows Gilliman's face, I win."
And it's double-sided Gilliman face.
Exactly. It's gonna be double-sided. It's gonna be the best.
So another secondary that was important. Sorry to derail you there, Len.
You're all good.
One that I think is a good change, because I thought it was too strong, is Abhor the Witch. Abhor the Witch has gone down to 2 points for each Psyker unit and 3 points for each Psyker character. And
I didn't see that change. Okay.
No, it's really good. It kind of brings the Slaaneshi armies and demon armies and whatnot back into line, because honestly, it was a bit feels bad for those armies sometimes. Just I know Grey Knights, you're in a good position. However, I still find it at top end tables, talking with a lot of other players who play Grey Knights as well, they find it hard fighting that uphill battle. Because your basic units or troops or whatever give up 3 points, but they have to sit on an objective for 5 points. So your primary scoring essentially is like positive 2 points, but it's kind of like you're making less positive trades than your opponent, if that makes sense. You don't just stand on an objective, get 5 points, and then they just kill you, and they get nothing for it. They actually get 3 points for killing you. So you scoring primary is essentially a 2 point trade, 2 point swing. And the other thing is...
And it's the opportunity cost too, because you're losing a unit, right?
Exactly. So I argue that it's arguably worse for the Psyker armies to cope with that. Especially Grey Knights, because man, you've only got like 3 troop choices that you're going to take, because the 2 Wound Terminators don't cut it. And your 20-point Strike Marines.
No, they don't.
Your 20-point Strike Marines getting killed with a fucking bolter shot or something. It's crazy.
Man, a possessed is 20 points.
Oh, that's insane. Dude, my guy's going to Storm Bolter the crap out of him. But, and the other one was the Psyker characters went down to 3 points instead of 5, because it was terrible giving up 10 points for one character killed. Oh, sorry, 8 points for one character killed. It was a bit hefty. Because armies like Grey Knights obviously are character dependent, because all their characters get access to the special powers, which you need.
No.
Yeah. So it's like, ooh, you kill these, you basically auto win.
But the weird part about that is that, like Abhor the Witch's change, positive for Grey Knights. But don't lie to me. When you play Grey Knights, you take While We Stand every game.
Dude, I do, yes. And also, I
absolutely take While We Stand.
Take almost no psychic secondaries half the time. Because
so you're gonna take While We Stand because Voldus, Drago, and your Chaplain or some other nonsense or Grandmaster, I don't care.
Yeah.
They are all the most expensive stuff. And now that that's changed,
Yeah, it's like double Paladin squad and a Terminator squad.
yeah, man. But like the thing is, if you so you can do that with While We Stand, but I think you're almost pushed at some points to take board control secondaries,
Yes.
and GKs do not particularly like board control secondaries.
No, it's quite rough. Yeah, so interesting changes. I still think that the psychic secondaries need to be a little bit reworked. I think they too heavily favor non-psychic armies, which kind of defeats the purpose of the psychic secondaries. But that's just my opinion. Like in all instances, if you think, yep, I'd rather take a Ball the Witch over every other psychic secondaries, that's a problem.
See, this is kind of random, but before all of the secondaries, if you're reading the GT pack or the rulebook, just randomly, all of the secondaries have a bit of fluff attached to them. And one of the like fun bits of fluff is for Psychic Ritual. The Psychic Ritual says like, oh, the war isn't going in our favor. Everything's going to hell. As a last ditch effort, we tried to perform a ritual to like end the world, basically. And I'm like, great. But now you've got this mental image of this world-ending psychic ritual, and the Silent King decides on a 4-up he denies your psychic power and nothing happens. Like it's a bit of an anticlimax, and I sort of feel like they're just the psychic secondaries, especially the psychic action ones. Mental Interrogation is probably the best of the lot, but
Yeah.
Pierce the Veil. I don't know why you'd write a secondary worse than Psychic Ritual, but they did. They 100% did, because Pierce the Veil is almost impossible to do if you're playing Dawn of War, and actually impossible to do if you're playing anything but Dawn of War. And the thing is, like, Psychic Ritual as well is a cool secondary thematically, but if they deny one of them at a key turn, you get 0 points.
Yeah.
I mean, if you made Psychic Ritual 5 per, I think that still wouldn't be an auto take. I think it'd just be like a decent secondary to think about, because all psychic actions make you not do any other psychic powers with that model. So it's totally not like, you're getting this free, you're spending your psyker to do this shitty action that might not get you anything. I don't know. I think it's really bad, and I think GWR might have missed the mark on that one.
Yeah, dude, it's like, so first turn, you're not going to be in the middle, but you're going to get there, right? Second turn, you're going to do it. You need to be uninterrupted for the next fucking 3 turns. That's 2 to 5. That's like for the rest of the game. Don't go near this guy, please. Don't touch him. Don't get into combat with him. Don't do anything.
And the best or worst part is like the other one, Pierce the Veil. Not only is it, you have to be at your opponent's board edge.
Yeah.
Not only do you have to cast it 4 times, I think, to get 15, but in addition to the standard psychic rules, so it can be denied, you can't do it if you fall back, you also have to be 6 inches away from enemy models. So it's like, it's just impossible. Yeah. I don't even understand what, like, I don't even understand why GW? Why do you hate us?
Or it's just like, oh, you picked that, I'm gonna move my models at the back of the board for the entire game. You can't possibly score. It's like the easiest 15 points to stop. But yeah, aside from that, enough of the bitching of the psychic secondaries. We shall move on. Now, I think that's primarily it for the main rulebook changes. Now, there's some interesting debate whether or not some other fundamental, because there were some cool rulebook changes. One of which was the moving again wording. So they say like when you fire and fade, or when you move again using a psychic power, you perform a normal move. And I think during this you move now, you can no longer advance. Is that correct, Liam?
Yeah, so any ability that allows you to move again, if it doesn't specifically state so, it makes you count as having performed a normal move, which is a specific subset of what you can do in the movement phase. And that means you cannot advance and you cannot fall back, which is really, really interesting. So, for example, with Warp Time, you can't advance. With Warp Time, you can't fall back either. And interestingly, I don't know why it matters, but with Warp Time, you can't remain stationary. which is actually really bizarre. Like, look, I totally understand there are easy ways around this, but remain stationary is not a normal move. It's a different thing. So if you do warp time and you have a big squad, you actually have to move every model. You can just move them like a nanometer. It doesn't matter. But it's just bizarre that you must move. The warp compels you. So that's a bit interesting.
Another interesting change is the always fight first, fight last. The counteroffensive stratagem can no longer be used to interrupt during the effects of fight last. So if a Vexator Mask says to you, no, you cannot fight now, you cannot use the counteroffensive stratagem to disrupt that.
That's a big deal. That's actually a really big deal.
Because originally everyone was confused when that first wording came out. They're like, hang on, can you still do this? And they changed it so that you could interrupt during those instances. But now, in the rare rules, it has been changed. This means that if a unit is under the effects of the rules that says it's not eligible to fight until all other units have done so, you will not be able to select that unit to use the counter-offensive stratagem.
And I think that makes those abilities actually way more potent. Because previously people would be like not really too fussed by things like the Vexator Mask and the Armor of Rust and whatnot were always very good defensively, but offensively they kind of sucked because you just, again, use the 2 CP interrupt and hit everything essentially the same as you would anyway. It didn't really slow down anything. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that change. I think it's good for balance overall.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else from this FAQ, man? I think you've milked it pretty well.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much main points. There's some other little interesting things here, but they're not that big. They're kind of just like read at your own go. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Now, the final point: events for 2020.
Here we go.
Sorry, 2021. Already missed a year. So the Gladiator Gaming, we had a team event here in Queensland that was unfortunately abruptly cancelled due to the lockdown. I think that will be postponed later in the year. Josh is yet to confirm. Oh no, he confirmed a date for later in February.
It's the 20th and 21st of February, I think, or the 21st and 22nd. It's the weekend around then, still the Saturday, Sunday, with a very robust COVID plan in place to let the event run, which is really awesome.
Yeah, so unfortunately, you can never predict those sort of things, but we'll try and adapt as a community the best as we can.
Absolutely.
What other events are planned for 2021, Liam?
Well, Luke, I'm glad you asked because the week after that, at Bris Vegas, we Normal Blokes will be running a little RTT. It'll be pretty standard stuff. 2,000 points, GT missions, 3 games, 1 day, maximum of 32 people. Tickets will be sold by the Bris Vegas Comics and Games website. Hit that up, and we'll have a players pack and everything up soon. But it's what you'd expect from one of our events, very similar to what I ran last year. And I'm going to run a couple of those this year. I'm looking at running 3 or 4 of those throughout the year. And I believe the Normal Blokes at some point will be doing a GT as well this year. We need to sort of confirm dates for that and everything. But roughly, I think we're looking at May, Luke? Question mark?
Dad will have to confirm later, but it's around that time.
All right, we'll ask Dad, and then we'll get back to you about that one, guys. But in addition to all of this, we are praying to the Chaos Gods that 2021 will let us run the Australian Team Championships, because we're hoping by the latter half of this year that the vaccine will have rolled out across Australia, not getting too political in this podcast, and we will be ready to actually travel again and run some big 40K tournaments. I'm crossing my fingers and my toes that goes ahead. I miss it so much.
Yeah, me too. It'll be good to get back into some 40K tournaments. Yeah, so I think that's basically it for this episode. Thanks for coming on, Liam. To all our
always
viewers.
Enjoy it, and welcome back to 2021, everyone. It's going to be a fun year for the podcast and our battle reports and our tournaments, and hope to see you all around.
Yeah. So if you enjoyed our content, please like and subscribe to us on Facebook and iTunes. We're also on Spotify for all those Spotify users. Also, please give us some feedback after our first battle reports. Let us know some ideas that you might come up with or things that you'd like to see. This will always give us ideas.
They'll be on YouTube.
They will be on YouTube. Are we going to Twitch as well? Can't remember. I think we're primarily using YouTube at this start.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Whatever. I'll put them on Twitch too.
Liam doesn't know how to use a computer, so he won't be doing that.
Man, I don't even own a computer. I'm going to be conscripting Luke to do it for me.
Jesus, I better get paid for that, Liam. Just kidding. But yeah. Send us any feedback and let us know what you like. I guess we'll see you next time.
I totally derailed you there.
You did. I lost it.
Good night, listeners. Thanks for listening.
See you guys.